Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be the knitting book tag created by Kara of Wild Book Garden. So this tag is knitting terms followed by a prompt. The first one is cast on. The first section you scope out in a bookstore / library / online book shopping. And usually when I'm online book shopping, I will be looking for a specific book, so I will type it in, but in person I'm more likely to browse, so the first thing I go for is the middle grade section, and within that middle grade fantasy I'm most likely to see covers that like call out to me on those ones, whereas I find in YA fantasy covers are less descriptive of what's going on in the book. In middle grade a lot of times they'll be very descriptive of what's going on in the book, so it's easier to pick them based on covers or on quick reads of synopses. Oh, I forgot to mention, I don't knit, but I do crochet, and I hadn't crocheted for a couple of years until I found this person online who makes crocheted stuffed animals, and then because I didn't realize that you could make stuffed animals by crocheting, so I got back into it and I made this mushroom and these two are also mushrooms. This is the one that I bought, and there's a tiny little pumpkin and a big pumpkin that I've made all of these in the last couple of weeks because I got really inspired and yeah, bought a bunch of yarn and really have been going for it. It's very, I need something to do with my hands when I watch TV, so it's a very nice thing to do at the same time as I'm doing that. Octopuses are very easy and they're also very cute, so I've made several of those. So the second question is knit. Obviously a staple of knitting, a super hyped book that completely delivered for you. And Booktubers is one that was very hyped, and I was a little nervous about it because sometimes I don't like contemporary romances, but it was really, really good. It lived up to the hype. I loved the secondary characters and how important platonic relationships were in that book, and also how the main characters bonded over a love of literature. Pearl, as important as the knit stitch, but probably not as famous. Name a character you think deserves more love from the fandom, the author, other characters, etc. And I picked the boy who lost fairyland, this kid, because there are 4 books in the series that are mainly about a set of main characters, and then his book is the odd one out. Well, he's included in the book that comes after his main book. I really enjoyed his character, and I feel like I would have enjoyed more exploration of him, and especially how his being a troll who was switched at birth with a human child, he was a, what are they called? Changeling, basically. How that how his learning human rules and how to behave in human society was very much similar in a lot of ways to an autistic kid learning how to behave, when it doesn't come intuitively like it does to neurotypical children. Number 4, chart. A book or author you've been meaning to read but somehow just haven't gotten around to, and why? I've been meaning to read Louise Penny's work for quite a while, because I've heard from both like my aunt and cousin that it's a good series, and also from people online that she writes a good mystery series. And I like series that are ongoing, that stick with the same characters so I can get to know them over a long time, and I like mysteries. But I have to be in a certain mood to read a mystery, and I'm also not sure if I want to start with her first books or if I want to start a little further on when she's a little bit more polished. So I've kind of been waiting for the perfect time and also figuring out which book I want to read first. So that's why I haven't got around to those books yet. Number 5, Double Pointed Needles. Recommend a series you can actually read out of order, and one that people might think you can, but you actually can't. So I picked the Orc Sworn series of romances for one that you can read out of order, because I read them out of order and enjoyed them just fine. And a lot of series of romances are like that. You only see the other couples a little bit, and you don't really need to know that much about them to understand their place in the other characters' stories. Like a lot of historical romances that will have all the people in the same family getting married one by one. You usually don't have to have read the other books in the series to understand it. Then there are books that are series of romances, like Radiance and the Wraith King series by Grace Draven, where they are also a series of romances. At least you pick up with a different couple in the third book, and I think it's going to be yet another couple in the fourth book, but you would very much not understand the basis of what was going on if you hadn't read the first couple of books in that series, because there's a lot more fantasy plot going on in those instead of just romances that stand on their own. Number 6, Cables, a book you heard negative reviews about but you ended up loving. The Sisters of Reckoning. I first of all didn't hear anything about the sequel to The Good Luck Girls, and then when I went to look it up on Goodreads, a lot of the reviews there were negative. But I had loved The Good Luck Girls so much that I decided to read it anyway, and I really, really liked it. I thought it was a lovely conclusion. I thought it did all the characters from the previous book justice, and it ended up going pretty much where I wanted it to go. So I really enjoyed that one, even though other people didn't. Number 7, Skein. Why do we still sell yarn like this? A trope you can't stand. And a trope that I really, really hate is in romances especially, or in somewhere there's a romance plot, pushy men who won't take no for an answer getting their way. Like, and that being romanticized, like, they propose to a woman, she says no, they keep trying and working at it and forcing her into proximity with them until she caves and says yes. That really, really bothers me, and I've DNF'd a couple of romances that were going in that direction. Characters who won't take no for an answer in that way need to have that blow up in their face, and that happened in a book that I read recently, and that was very satisfying. But when it works out for them, that really bugs me. 8, Gauge Swatch. Share an author who's always a good fit for you. And there are lots of authors who, like, I'll like an entire series by them, but then I don't enjoy some other book they've written. So I'll enjoy everything they set within a certain world, but not others. Like, I really enjoy everything set in the Del Toro universe, and I've read other works by Emily Rada, that I really enjoyed, and I've also read a few by her that were outside of that universe that I did not enjoy. Whereas Justina Ireland, who I picked for this prompt, everything I've read by her I have enjoyed, even stories that were totally unconnected from each other. So I think that until I come across a book that I don't like by her, she qualifies for that. 9, Stitch Marker. Share a specific scene that stands out clearly in your mind. No spoilers. Pretty much every scene from Iron Widow I can picture very clearly. Even, I'm not sure how long ago I read that, but it was quite a while ago, whereas a lot of other books will like blend together and like I'll have a idea of who the characters are and things like that, but the actual individual scenes will be very blurry. But I can definitely envision a ton of scenes from Iron Widow, especially ones at the end, but several in the middle that are like really sweet or really badass. I can picture those really well. Little lady. Number 10, yarn weight. Super useful info to take in at a glance. Do you have some bookish taste buddies? This could be someone you have really similar taste to in general, or for a specific kind of book. And I share a lot of taste with Kara, who made this tag. A lot of my middle grade recommendations come from her, and a lot of my fantasy recommendations, and a fair number of romance as well. And we have similar enough taste that I have liked 90% of the books that I've gotten recommended from her channel. Then Ellie from Earl Grey Books. Several romances I've gotten recommended from her I've really enjoyed, and she has put me onto authors that I never would have found out about except for her, that were really ones I enjoyed. Kaz Brecker recommends a lot of disabled rep books, and I have really enjoyed a lot of the ones that she talks about. And Anya Wan, she has done a series of like middle grade queer book recommendations, and I've picked out a bunch of books from those 3 videos, and I've really enjoyed all of the ones that I've read. And Anya reads a lot of middle grade and a lot of middle grade fantasy specifically, so a lot of those recommendations are also easy for me to pick out. Number 11, that novelty yarn someone gifted you because they heard you like knitting, but it's impossible to work with. What's a book that looked perfect for you on paper but just didn't work out? The Midwife's Apprentice is middle grade, it's short, and it's about a midwife's apprentice, and I really like midwives. I really like historical fiction fairly often, especially that features midwives. But this book I absolutely hated. It was so unenjoyable, and it just made me unhappy the entire time I was reading it. Number 12, Scarf, the perfect starter project. Recommend a good book for getting into a genre or kind of book. And I would recommend Mooncakes as a entryway to graphic novels if you haven't read very many graphic novels before, because I find it very easy to figure out which panel came next, and it is fairly long, so if you prefer longer fiction, it has a fairly long narrative arc, so it's not like just a flash in the pan like some graphic novels can be very short, because it takes a lot of pages to tell a story in picture format. So unless it's going to be fairly fat, it's going to be quite short. So I like the length of it as far as comparing it to regular novels. Some graphic novels can have really ambitious ideas about storytelling and like can tell them in really interesting and creative ways, but if you're not used to that, it can be a bit harder to get into. And this one has a very easy to understand plot arc, a lot of likable characters, and it's just not very confusing, and sometimes graphic novels can be. So I think that's a good entry point to graphic novels if you're not used to them. 13, Socks. Handmade socks are way harder than they look. Talk about an underappreciated author who deserves more hype. And I picked Julie E. Cerneda, who wrote A Turn of Light. She has written both fantasy and sci-fi, and I've only read 2 of her books, but I really enjoyed them. Her characterization is really lovely, and her books tend to be like really slow in a nice way. And I just haven't seen a lot of people talk about her either in sci-fi or in fantasy. So I don't know if she's big in other areas, but I haven't seen much of her on BookTube or TikTok or anything like that. 14, Cast Off. A weirdly specific thing that you love. Could be a trope, something in book construction, etc. A trope that's kind of common, a little bit common, is a bodyguard falling in love with the person they're guarding. A more specific one that I've only ever seen like once is a bodyguard falling in love with another bodyguard who's working either for the same person or the same group, because they like have very similar life goals and work together all the time. That is a very specific trope that I really, really like, and I would really like to see more of it. Number 15, Crafting Party. Honestly, one of the best parts of any Honestly, one of the best parts of any hobby is sharing it with friends. Take some people who craft or who might like to answer the questions. And I could not think of anybody who, I cannot remember actually seeing anyone talking about crafting. I know that I've heard other booktubers talk about crafting, but I cannot remember which ones they were. So I just picked some people, the Librarian of Alexandria, an autistic reader, Pretty Purple Polka Dots, and Marilyn Maya Mendoza. I take all of you if you would like to do this, no pressure if you wouldn't. I feel like there's an emoji that is a yarn ball, so if there is, one of those will be our emoji for this week, or a mushroom. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!